All right, Zach, we've been having this conversation over the past few months. What is the value of our brand? Who is our brand? What is our brand identity? Are we Crux Local? Are we Mach 10? Are we Traffic? You yelled at me yesterday for it.
I didn't
And
yell
what's
at
funny
you.
enough,
You're a sensitive man, and I love you. There was no yelling. It was like, pick one. What are we? I don't care what we are. I said you could name it the redheaded stepchild. I'm fine with that. I'll be the redheaded stepchild in this relationship.
well, you kind of are the redheaded stepchild. Well, let me start off by saying I think let's start with a story, right? So it's holidays, and in the holiday we all have that loved one that we miss, right? And for me it's my grandmother was the nicest lady. She, I remember her always, every time I was over her house, she would cook me dinner and all these things. And I remember her after we went to church, because she went to church like 4 days a week, right? She would go Sundays. I think she would go Mondays and then Wednesdays and then Sundays twice. So I remember every time I went to church with her, after we would leave, we would go to McDonald's. And at McDonald's, she would get a fish fillet. Now, back then, fish fillet, they came in, it was like a white wrapper with blue lettering, and they gave you a whole piece of cheese. And and
Wait,
so much.
that's so gross.
I know, a whole piece of cheese and this huge, all this tartar sauce. I remember biting it, and it tasted so good to me. I didn't know if I even liked cheese or if I liked fish at the time because I never ate fish, but it was the tartar sauce that I really loved. But that memory is embedded in me. So over the holidays, when I start missing my grandmother, I want to go to McDonald's and I want to get this fish fillet meal, right? Like I want a fish fillet because it's like in remembrance of my grandmother. So I go there this weekend and I go with my wife and I say, I want a fish fillet meal. She's like, oh, how gross. I was like, I know. And I haven't been to McDonald's in so long. And I walk into McDonald's and it's just like how I remember it, right? It's like the yellow and the brown and the seats look the same. And, the coffee machine changed or the soda machine changed a little bit, but it's like, it still had the same stuff, right? So I get the fish fillet meal. Now they give you half a piece of cheese, which is the weirdest thing, not a full piece, right? So now this fish fillet comes with a half a piece of cheese, and then they give you a dot of tartar sauce, which I had to like change that for myself. I was like, I need more tartar sauce. There's no way I can eat this dry thing with half a slice of cheese. Anyways, so as I go through that and I start biting it, I start remembering that experience. And I bring this up because when I think of branding, I don't think of branding as a logo or the colors. When I think of branding, I think of branding as an experience. The experience that I have with the product, the experience I have with the service, that's how I feel is branding. So when we go back and forth sometimes, what's funny is like my background is in design, right? So my background is in design. I got my multimedia degree in design, and I got this master's in technical animation. I do all this stuff. So design is important to me, and branding is important to me. And I think of Seth Godin said it best. He said if Nike went to open a hotel, we would all know what that experience would feel like. We would know what the floors would look like. We would know what the walls, what the interior of the rooms would look like. He said, but if Marriott went into the shoe business, we have no idea what that looks like.
Right.
And I think the importance of that is talking about, okay, that's branding. Branding to me is the experience behind what how we interact, the result that we have. And everybody's experience is different too. So, I know me and you go back and forth of like Traffic Tuesdays and the Crux Local and the Mach 10 or whatever that is. I'm committed to Crux Local. But to me, it's like so. To me, is branding's the
Well,
experience. So,
branding's
at the,
powerful, and that's why we're going back and forth. And like both what we're doing now is a relatively new venture together, and so like I don't care. what the team, like, so we're going back and forth, Mach 10, Crux Local, Traffic Tuesday. It doesn't matter right now because we're building a movement here. Like, we're serving people, but I want to become known. And I'll give you a powerful example of this, Michael. What percentage would you guess of e-commerce businesses make more than gross more than $100,000 a year? Out of all there's a ton of them out there. What percentage would you think?
All right, gross more than $100,000 a year. I'm gonna say 25%.
That was pretty good guess. It's a little less than 12%. So you're not too far off. But so the vast majority of e-commerce businesses don't make more than 100,000. And what's the barrier for entry to start an e-commerce business? Well, I can go to Shopify, I can put in my email address, and boom, they gave me a free 30-day account, and I have an e-commerce business, right? And so the barrier to entry is very low on that. But the power of branding, this is where I want to go with this. I had an idea. My wife has this amazing business, Choose Life. She makes rosaries for women, and I said, I want manly rosaries. Why don't we make a manly version of this? And not only that, because just like you, Michael, I'm not too much into sports. I'm into business, and I love business. Business is my sports. Like, I can talk about business and growing businesses and figuring out the ways to do things. That is so much fun to me. I said to my wife, like, what if we made a manly brand? We came up with a few designs, and let's see if we could scale it to $100,000 of revenue in 90 days. And so I built it. We came up with the designs. We added the products. We built out the product. We launched the site, and we didn't make $100,000 in 90 days. It took us like 94 days. Which was really cool. Like, we grew this whole thing, and like, some of it was with ads, but a lot of it was standing on the brand of the other company that we made. And so we were able to leverage that relationship, which is really powerful. And that's why I'm screaming from the rooftops. We got to pick a name, whatever the name is. It doesn't matter, because we got to be known as that. And there's other great examples of this. And then I'm going to get tactical for you. So hang on there. If you're listening to this, because this is really powerful. But let's talk about Ryan Reynolds. Everyone knows Ryan Reynolds. Ryan Reynolds, basically every single movie role he plays is some sort of version of Deadpool. He doesn't have a lot of dynamicness to him. Neither do I, but he's much better looking, and he's funnier. But like, every movie you watch with him, it's basically some version of Deadpool. However, he's very likable, he's very charismatic, and he's very intelligent. If you look at what he's done, he's made like a couple now, maybe more than a couple $1 billion brands. Aviation Gin is one of them. And, I'm sure you've seen like him going back and forth, the witty banter with Hugh Jackman, which is absolutely hilarious. And the other one, Mint Mobile, both of those two companies, he was able to come into Mint Mobile, come into Aviation Gin, leverage his brand of being hilarious. Ryan Reynolds got a lot of eyeballs on it, and then built up this brand with that. And so that's the power of a brand. Now, I also want to give you, I want to warn you, if we look at the power of a brand, a lot of that will come down to how many people are following you on Instagram, how many people are following on Facebook, on TikTok, on YouTube, these different places. Any of those platforms can deplatform you right away. And so in addition to building that brand, we have to build our database. And so if we're going to do this the right way, Michael and I do this the same way. We offer lead magnets out there. We give something away for free. We get the email address. We now own that email address. It's in our database. And so if Facebook deplatforms us, or YouTube, or any of these other places, it's not as devastating as it would be, because we have this database. And I'm going to talk about growing that in a second. But Michael, give me your thoughts on the power of branding when you think about these other companies.
Well, it's funny how you talked about Ryan Reynolds, right? Because I'm gonna take it back to the experience, because every movie you see with him, he has, he's funny, right? Like, he has that kind of like that humor to it, and it's that experience of that joke that lands. So I have seen him and I feel like I've also seen him in some type of soccer. I don't know if he owns a soccer league,
I
or
think it
and I don't
does.
even
Yeah.
know if that's a TV show or if
No,
it's
no, it's legit. They made a
it's
TV show.
legit.
He bought a soccer team.
Okay, so I think about that, and then I think about Harlem Globetrotters. I think about what with the banana baseball, and I think Ryan Reynolds falls into that because I feel like his experience would be similar to those, where it's a little bit outside of the box of the traditional norm of sports. Which I don't even know if he does that, but I would expect that, right? If I go to a Rhino, if I go see Ryan Reynolds, whoo, tongue twister. If I go see his soccer team, I expect to be entertained, not just by soccer, but by some type of comedic experience. Um, and I think that's the power of the branding behind him. Now, if I didn't have that experience, I would kind of be like, oh, it would feel off in some way,
Yeah.
right? And it's the same thing with Apple. If Apple came out with a product and it was not to the Apple standard, right? I'd be like, whoa, what's going on here, right? It's like, and we love Apple. And the funny thing is, recently, we've been talking about our Apple experience with our devices, and you're like, what is going on with this new thing, right? Like, I have to click 4 times. You told me just yesterday, I have to click 4 times to make a phone call. Well, that's so true, right? Because the experience that Apple gives us is supposed to be easy. It's supposed to be intuitive. It's supposed to be like a child can do it, right? So it's like when I look at it, like, wow, like there's a disconnect now with the brand in a way of like the user experience. So if you ask me, hey, Michael, why do you love Apple? Well, I love Apple because I remember when I was first starting off in business. I had my Windows PC, and then I moved over to Apple, and Apple inside of their stores had these workshops. I forget, I think they were called one-on-ones at the time. And I would go there and they would teach me how to use the Mac computer for my business. So the initial experience that I had with Apple was like, oh my gosh, they're helping me grow my business by teaching me how to use their product. And it was intuitive, it was easy. Like, we dove deep into these things. So that's why I personally fell in love with the brand. Now, I don't have that with Nike, right? Like, I don't have that type of experience with Nike. So I'm not sure, like, I don't have that type of connection. But I will say this. There was and I may have mentioned this before, I love to watch documentaries, and there's this documentary about Tinker Hatfield. And Tinker Hatfield was, he was the original designer of the Air Jordan shoes. Now, I was never into Air Jordans. I was never into that. But when I watched this documentary, he would talk about how he was an architect. Like, he started as an architect, and then Nike hired him, and they hired him for the Air Jordan shoe. And Jordan wasn't kind of like as big as he was, right? He was just coming out, and whatever the deal was they had. But he started talking about how he created this shoe and how it was inspired by the 1942 bombers, and it had these like these waves on it to represent the shark, and the tongue was metallic, and when he jumped in the air, and they took a picture of Jordan, the metallic tongue of the shoe would light up, and that little logo would be there. So he told this whole story behind the shoe, which made me feel a stronger connection to the brand, because I'm like, wow, this is not just a shoe to this guy. This guy really took his time and put this thought process into it, which made me love the brand even more. So now I do buy Air Jordan shoes now. It's like the only shoe I kind of only have. I've been getting into boots now. Like, I'm getting in
Well,
touch with my.
stories. We know this increase the perception of value. And so when you're telling the brand, like if you look at the Crux Local brand, it's the sword, and we'll see if we get in trouble for copyright versions, but like it's Aragorn's sword that's broken, right? Like, because us as people, us as a business owners, we're all broken. And it can be there it is, reforged back there. Like when we do the right things, we can really reforge the sword, reforge ourselves, reforge our businesses. So there is a story behind what we're doing here, and there's certain universal principles to do that. And like, especially with your brand, with the database, this is critical. I had the opportunity of talking to Jay Abraham, the $1 billion marketer, which was really cool, on on this topic, and he said, we were talking about marketing versus branding. Um, when you have somebody that comes into your business, it is so much easier to retain that person than it is to go find somebody new. And part of that brand is touch points with these people, different experiences with these people, ways of communicating your brand to them. And if I looked at, back in the day when I was coaching real estate agents, you used to have a 36 touch campaign is what we would call it, and so there's
Wow.
36 different touch points. A monthly email would be 12 of those touches, for you to stay top of mind. So just like you were saying, shoes, a lot of people would say Nike, maybe they say Reebok, maybe they say Vans, whatever it is. These corporations like Nike, Reebok, and these others, they spend ridiculous money on branding. And as individuals, small business owners, we don't have the luxury of spending their kind of money on that. And so we have to be intentional with the database. But what I'll tell you is we quickly found a formula. As marketing, continues to grow, they always are finding new ways to reach out to us. It's easy to get lost in that noise. And so by just picking your database and going after your database and having a good marketing campaign for them, miracles will happen in your business. And what we found was that we could, depending on how many touches we had to the database, we could get a 5% return from that database. And Michael, you and I have found this in other businesses too, that have nothing to do with real estate. But what I mean by that is for every 100 people that they would have in their database, you could figure on 5 transactions, either someone buying a house or selling a house with that. And it works with other businesses. It's working right now in our e-commerce businesses and the other places that we're seeing it. A good rule of thumb, when you're marketing properly to your databases, every email address you have in that database is worth $1 a month. If you're listening to this, that should really excite the heck out of you, because I just unlocked the way for you to make whatever you want. You want to make $1 million a year, you need 8,300 people in that database. I'm sorry, 83,000 people in that database to make $1 a month. You make $83,000 a month, you multiply that by 12, that's $1 million a year. Now, is that a lot of people? Yeah, absolutely. But there's ways you can do this, like to attract people out there. You're working on the brand. What's the lead magnet you can offer? And then how do you love on these people? And that's really another secret sauce of the businesses, like giving more value than you take. It's a critical thing, a fundamental belief that I have. Like, how can you love on your database? How can you pour more value into them, and not just take from them, and then watch your business flourish?
I think that's good because, like you could take a step back and ask yourself, how do you want your customers, to perceive you? Like you want them to feel loved. You want them to feel like, hey, I tell our, the people that work for us, I said, look, there is so much to say when the clients know that we are trying our best, that we are working the hardest, even if results aren't coming through like we expect, that we're out there, we're trying, we're making different campaigns, we're trying new creatives, we're doing things differently and trying rather than just giving up. There's something to say to that. So it's like, what is the experience that you want your database, your customers to feel when they're with you?
And I think, the approach that we take is more holistic than a lot of marketing companies, because a lot of marketing companies, instead of branding, they focus on marketing. They focus on direct response marketing. And there's nothing wrong with that. However, the cost to acquire a new customer, a new client, is always greater than it is to maintain the relationships with the ones that you have. When you build your brand with the people that you already have, you stay top of mind. So when they think plumber, they think you. When they think, real estate agent, they think you. When they think, heating and cooling, they think you. And so you're staying top of mind with those people. And so when something breaks or they need help, they reach out to you first and foremost. But then the second thing that we often forget about is the referrals. When we look at the hierarchy, when something goes wrong in my world, is, it's wintertime here. If I'm cold, my furnace goes out, I need a furnace. I'm immediately thinking, we talked about this last week. Who has come over recently that I really liked? And if I didn't have a great experience with them, then I'm not probably going to call that person. But instead of going to the internet right away, I'm probably going to ask my friends and my family, hey, who do you know that's a good guy that you could trust? And like, I have this happen to me all the time. People asking for referrals. And then they're going to go to the internet to search for this person. But like the number one place is like, who's taking care of me? And are we staying top of mind with that? And if the answer is yes, you're going to get a lot more phone calls. And then if you teach your database how to refer you, you're also going to grow. And the cool thing is that it doesn't take a ton of money to reach out to these people. It takes intentionality. And a lot of the things too, like we Michael, like I remember talking to our clients, like trying to get them to do some videos, like send some videos out to your database to stay top of mind. And they're always so worried, like, oh, it's got to be prim and proper and perfect. The lighting's got to be just the right one. Like, no, not at all. Send out videos, show them what you're doing, have different appreciation things, and watch the business flourish. And then, of course, yes, the internet thing is absolutely huge.
I was gonna say, when you deliver a good experience, like you would say from the referrals, your customers become raving fans. They will shout your name from the rooftop. I have a client that I work with on a side thing, and he like literally posted, "If you want to work with Michael in investments, this is the guy you need to work for. He's always taking my calls. He's always getting back to me. He's always da 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 da." Whatever that is, he becomes your raving fan. So I think that's so important.
I love that. So if you're looking to grow your business, you want an audit, we should have said this in the beginning, go to cruxlocal.com. We will audit your business and show you who's, taking customers from you right now, who's the number one person in your area. And then like, we'll show you the roadmap to change that. Michael, talk to me a little bit about like what that looks like.
Well, when someone comes to Crux Local, they can sign up for a free strategy session. Give us your website. We'll look at your Google My Business profile, and we will get on the phone and talk like quickly what your goals are, what you're trying to accomplish, and from our experience, how to get you there the fastest. I think at the end of the day, today's session, today's talk was really about branding. How do you use the experience of your customers to help you, get more customers? And that's what we would like to do, is help you with that piece of it. So just visit Crux Local. Let's sign up for a free strategy call. We'll do an audit with you, and we can go from there. Thank you very much for listening.
See you, everybody.